Okay, let's do a Scarlet Witch strategy guide for those of you who are new to her and haven't played her yet, and talk about just some possible routes you could take with her. Typically, she's a damaged character. She likes to gain a lot of status effect tokens. She even has this Conjure, which could technically copy a status effect token from the leaflet of another character that you're going against. So you're not stealing it per se. It's not a transfer like maybe the Tactician or just transference to the actual card. It's a copy. Now, any opponent can discard a card in order to cancel out that effect. And also, you can target yourself with this effect, so you can copy your own stuff. Crackle is your primary target for that when you're going to be doing that. But also, the opponent can still discard to stop that from happening. So just one caveat there. The primary use for Conjurer is to inflict Reality Warp. Yeah, so Reality Warp. It's one of the most oppressive status effect tokens in the game, in my opinion. Especially when you use it in tandem with Scarlet Witch's deck. She has the most dice modifying cards in all of Dice Throne so far. We'll see with the new set if she stays with that title. So if you use Reality Warp very consistently, Conjure is basically just another Reality Warp. There are instances when you would use it for some other things, but only if you know it's going to go through and then the discard won't happen. Or you can kind of bait out the discard. You can use it that way too. Typically, you're going to be using it for Reality Warp because I think Reality Warp is a very good effect in general. So what Reality Warp is you give your opponent one of your dice, and then they have to use your dice for their offensive roll, their next offensive roll phase. Meaning that if there's any 5-symbol abilities that they have to have, it's impossible for them to get, which includes the ultimate. So they can't get their ultimate, and they can't get any 5-symbol offensive roll ability. Also, furthermore, if they play dice modifying cards that would allow them to roll all 5 dice, they have to include your dice in that as well, and that will also probably hinder some of that return on value or investment if they do play those dice mods while they're inflicted with Reality Warp. So typically, how I like to play this character is you want to be inflicting Reality Warp as much as possible, almost every turn or every other turn. You want to be slowing your opponent down from doing damage to you, because Scarlet Witch has a very exploitable defense. She doesn't mitigate any damage at all on her defensive roll, and she only has 2 cards in her entire deck that will mitigate damage from direct damage from from card effects and when you're taking damage. So the main effect of your defense is to gain Crackle, or you can gain any of your effects on this on your defensive roll as well, or hit back for 4, but that's pretty rare. Let's go ahead and talk about probability manipulation here. So you can spin this to change the value of any one of your dice displaying an even number, so 2, 4, and 6, up or down by 1 value. A value of 6 cannot be increased, so you can't make it a 1. You can't make your 6 a 1. It can only go down to 5. 2 can go to a 1 or 3, but when you look at that, 1 or 3 is the same symbol, so that doesn't really help you here. But however, on the 4, it's very useful. You can go down to a warp, up to a spell, or keep the 4. It's very, very useful for that instance. And then there are some times when you will want to use your crown and then go down to a 5. Primarily, this really helps you get straights. You can get large straights more consistently than any other character in the game because of this status effect token. And your large straight is actually pretty good. It inflicts Reality Warp. And that's exactly what we're going to be trying to do throughout the game. So it does 9 damage at base and inflict Reality Warp. Yeah, probability manipulation is very good. You can also use it on your defensive roll, so long as you haven't gained it the same turn. So, you can't use probability manipulation that you gained on your defensive roll to change your defensive roll, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now that we got all of that out of the way, let's actually look at her board. And I'm going to go to the left half first. So your basic attack, Dark Hold, Jinx, and Mind Blast. So Scarlet Witch actually does have really good base numbers, I think, in my opinion. Her base numbers are pretty solid. I love the 4, 6, 8 basic attack on your base board. That's my favorite. The only thing better than that is Loki and Monk's 6, 7, 8. For your basic attack. And there are going to be some times when you will have to just settle for a basic attack. So having the 8 option when you use all 5 is really nice. It's very good. And because of probability manipulation, sometimes it'll be better. Like just to move a 4, if you're like you have 4 of these symbols and then a 4, you can just move the 4 down and then choose the 8. So the 8 damage option. So it's actually good. It gets even better when you upgrade it. Now some people say that this upgrade's not worth it, specifically because conjuration sucks. It's terrible. The reason why you do upgrade this ability is for the actual basic here. It increases the damage by 1 on every stage, but 4 of a kind inflict reality warp. So that's really good in my opinion. And actually, this it'd be better if it was 3 of a kind. That would be almost guaranteed. But you're only going to be using this if you're doing the 5 symbol attack anyway, getting that 9 damage. You know, adding a crackle to it to get it up to 12. And then if you use the probability manipulation, you can have pretty good odds of actually getting 4 of a kind. So you want to keep your 2s and keep your 4s if it looks like you're going to be going into this ability. That way you can use probability manipulation to change him to a 3, change your 2 to a 3 and your 4 to a 3 if you need to, and then that'll get you your 4 of a kind, or keep your 2 and then move them down to 1 if you have a bunch of 1s, and that'll get you 4 of a kind. So actually, don't sleep on this ability. Your 4 of a kind in number is the easiest of all the heroes to actually get with this. So a lot of people say that probability manipulation's kind of awkward to use on her because you can only do the even numbers, which is true. And typically you want to keep your 4s because Jinx is kind of OP once you upgrade that, and we'll get to that in just a second. But don't sleep on this ability. If you get this early, and you're able to, consistently get out probability manipulation tokens, this actually could win you some games by just constantly inflicting reality warp and then gaining, dealing 12 damage or whatever. Even 9 damage is solid. And then, there's a lot of control here with this ability, and has higher than average damage. So if you get it early to mid, depending on how you're rolling and where the game state is, I actually think this card's not bad. It's playable, but not in every situation, obviously. So let's go ahead and go talk about Jinx. So Jinx is a 1, 2, or 3, two of those symbols. I can't remember what they're called. Warps, I guess. Okay, 2 of the warp symbols, and then 2 of the 4 symbols, which is the chaos symbol. At base, it does 6 damage, and then you roll 2 die. So this is on the base effect. It's on the word. So when it's on, that means you only get it once. You can't keep getting it. So there's some discrepancy here. So on any of the 2 die, if they have a chaos symbol, not a chaos symbol, I'm sorry, a warp symbol, you add 2 damage. So 8 damage at base is pretty good. On a 4 symbol, which is the chaos symbol, you gain a probability manipulation. That's pretty good. On a 5, you inflict reality warp. That's really good. And then on a 6, you add 1 damage, and then you can re-roll that die. Now, if you get 2 6s, it does not keep adding damage and then letting you re-roll that die on the base board. But when you do upgrade it, it will let you do that. So now it changes from on to times. And then what that does, you can theoretically do this infinitely a number of times if you keep rolling 6s. This can become a very hard-hitting ability sometimes out of nowhere. And I have had some strings of 6s where I've rolled 2, 3, 4 6s in a row, and then slapped on some crackle and got a whatever this is. I can't remember this symbol. Where I had 2 of these after rolling a bunch of 6s in a row, and then I used some crackle. Like, you can get up to 20 plus damage on this ability. Now it's not frequent, but it can happen. So it's pretty cool. If you roll on your first turn, you see 2 4s, keep both 4s. Always keep your 4s. Always keep your 4s. Sometimes keep your 2s. I would say just keep your 2s just in general, because then you could move them for straights if you need to, or move it for your basic ability if you want to pivot to that as well. So keep your 4s and your 2s, and obviously keep your 6s. You always keep your 6s, especially with Scarlet, which she has a board layout that's really good. Anyway, I think this is a worth it ability in the early to mid game. Late game, because of the damage potential, I almost think it's always worth it, in my opinion. The comeback potential in this ability is nuts. I just think it's worth it to play. Scarlet Witch has some good economy options with Darkhold, so it's not going to be hard to play upgrade cards for her. So I really do like this. I really do like this card, this upgrade. So speaking of Darkhold, let's go ahead and just talk about that one for a minute. So it's 2 5s. That's actually really common. That's an easy dice combination to get, especially with probability manipulation. So, and if you look at it, it will replenish you that probability manipulation if you happen to use it to get into this ability. So it gives you a card, it gives you a combat point, and it gives you a crackle. So this is and a probability manipulation token. So this is basically your resource economy option to build up for when you want to when you're out of everything. You don't have any status effect tokens. You want to be loaded up with status effect tokens on Scarlet Witch so that you can plump out big damage when you're using your crackles. I think this is another card that I think you almost always play, because I'm usually going into this ability at least once a game. At least once a game. Typically, I like to go 2 or 3 times a game, depending on the game state, depending on what happens. Especially if I upgrade this card. If you look at the numbers, when you upgrade this card, the very first time you use it, it already pays for itself. It replaces the card that you played, and it's 2 CP, which is what you pay for it. And then it gives you an additional crackle and an additional probability manipulation. So if you have to probability manipulate into this card, it doesn't matter. It'll max you out, or whatever. You'll still get maxed out of probability manipulation into this card. I actually think this is a very good option. I wish it could draw 2 cards on the upgrade, but that'd be kind of OP. I think this is worth it early to mid game. Late game, you don't want to be playing this all that much. Maybe once, and then try to, like, if you're trying to, like, pop off somehow, and I don't know. Or if you're, like, in a desperation, you need that card draw, you know. I just think all of her abilities are pretty solid. All right, so Mind Blast. Mind Blast on base. This is the only ability on her base board in which you can gain a crackle while dealing damage. So it requires 1 of each symbol, so either a 1, 2, or 3, and then a 4, 5, and 6. So this will be kind of in tandem with your small straight. If you have your small straight, you can also get Mind Blast a lot of the time. Typically, you want to pick Mind Blast, in my opinion, because you want to be able to gain your crackle. That's a guaranteed gain crackle on your and inflict damage. So you roll a die. You're dealing 5 pure damage. Roll 1 die. If the value is even, you gain a probability manipulation. If the value is odd, you're going to hit for 8 pure damage instead of 5 pure damage. That's really good. You can even probability manipulate if you roll that even number and you're maxed out on probability manipulations and you don't want to gain or lose value. If you think about it that way, go ahead and probability manipulate off your even number. I think they designed it that way specifically, right? Because even numbers is when you can use it. Well, even numbers is when you gain it. So go ahead and just use that and then do 8 pure damage. That's better than wasting value gaining a token that you can't gain if you're already maxed out on probability manipulation. So there's a lot of uses for probability manipulation. I know a lot of people just, I don't know, the competitive scene just really dogs on that token, but I like it. Okay, so the upgrade is 2 CP, you gain an extra crackle, and then you do 1 extra damage when you when you roll an odd number. So probably worth it. Anytime you increase your crackle, I think it's worth it, especially when you're dealing damage and you have extra damage. I think this is a playable card early to mid game. So let's go to the right side. So now we're going to go to our straights. So Spellcraft, deal 7 damage and gain a probability manipulation. So this might be, under rare circumstances, will you pick Spellcraft over Mind Blast? I think you almost always pick Mind Blast over Spellcraft, but you'll take this when you get it, and it's not a Mind Blast, obviously. It's okay. I don't have a whole lot to talk about the small straight. The large straight, however, we've kind of discussed this. This is what you will kind of be shooting for on probability manipulation if you end up missing or whiffing on some of your other abilities. So how I like to play Scarlet Witch is I like to roll 1 on my first roll. I like to evaluate where the dice are leading towards, and then I like to play her kind of like the what's his name, the samurai, where you try to decide on your second roll and really confirm it, and then use probability manipulation to either guarantee something or add more damage if needed on that roll. In regard to the large straight, many times you're going to be going for Mind Blast or whatever, or something's going to happen. You're going to roll for the large maybe. Let's say you miss the large straight by one number. You can use probability manipulation to get into it. Sometimes it'll be like random rolls too. Like you'll have some sort of I don't know, like a 2 3 4 6 6 is a combination that you could have, or 2 3 4 4 6, you know, or even a 2 3 2 2 3 4 5, something like that. That can get you a large straight. So there's a lot of combinations that will just lead into the large straight, and this is one of your better abilities. It inflicts reality warp, and it deals a good amount of damage that can be adjusted with Crackle. So I like it. Now here's the upgrade. It adds 1 damage to each of them, and that's it. I actually like to sell this card. I don't typically like to play this because all it does is add 1 damage, and if you're playing against like a Loki, this is going to be a priority option for him to actually guard on his whatever spellbounds or whatever they're called. So I don't like playing this card. Never feel bad selling this card. I know you get into I know you can get into these pretty easily with probability manipulation, and adding that 1 damage is fine, but it's only 1 damage. It's just not, I don't know, it's not worth it for me. Okay. Bewitch. So 3 6s and a 1 2 or 3. That's not bad. If you end up opening up a roll with 2 6s, you might want to consider going for this, because it's a fallback. If you miss, like, you know, pure chaos or your ultimate ability, if you open up with like 2 or 3 6s on your first roll, just, you know, you have this fallback. Like, so you can go for broke with Scarlet Witch. I love that about this character. She has so many options on her rolls, man. So it's cool. It's cool. Anyway, you gain a conjure, so inflict reality warp is how we're going to basically read that. And deal 9 damage. That's pretty solid. It's basically the same as your large straight. Yeah, not too much to say about that, other than it's just really neat because it allows you to go for broke on trying to hit your ult or mini ult or whatever. All right, so here's your upgrade. It's only 1 CP. Only 1 CP. This is one of the, in my opinion, in all of Dice Throne, this is one of the best value for upgrade cards in the game. Now, I know this dice combination isn't all that frequent or reliably rolled, but it is a reliable fallback is the whole point of this. And then it gives you the second ability of Energy Drain, which is steal 3 health. This is an awesome closeout game ability because no one can stop it unless they stop the ability itself. It's kind of like an ult. It's like a little tiny ult that deals 3 damage. They cannot respond to this once the ability has been picked and locked in if they haven't changed the dice. And there's going to be a lot of games where it's close and you just need that 3 damage. So this is technically a 6 health swing too, because you're stealing 3 health from them. Gosh, dude, this character's just so crazy. Play this almost always. I just don't see why you would ever not play this card. It's so cheap, and it plays into what she wants to do. Anyway, all right. Okay. Mini and micro ults. Oh, actually, let's talk about the base for a second. So yeah, it's pretty standard. It's a little bit underwhelming in terms of damage, 6 undefendable. But if you look at there's other characters that that only do like 5 or 6 undefendable as well, and they're not gaining Conjure and Reality Warp. This basically guarantees Reality Warp over 2 turns. That's kind of nuts. All right, so for 2 CP, you increase the damage of Pure Chaos by 1, and then it gives you just Chaos. You gain a Conjure, a Probability Manipulation, and 2 Crackles. So this here, I would only play this card if you get it extremely early game. And you think you're going to be rolling for a lot of 6s or something that game for whatever reason. I don't know what matchup base where you would basically be going for ults almost all the time. But this is not really all that great when you have this ability here. It kind of undermines this. The only reason why you would do this is, you know, because it's giving you all these tokens for refueling for your Crackle if you have no tokens on your board. And you went for an ult and you got pushed off of it. That's the only reason why you would go for this. Even then, I would still probably just take the damage and a Conjure over a Conjure, Probability Manipulation, and 2 Crackle. Maybe. I'd probably take that because 9 damage is theoretically better than 6 damage. and I don't think probability manipulation is worth 3 damage necessarily. It might be. I mean, if you're rolling off a whiff onto like a straight, then technically, yeah, it's 3 damage. But there's very rare situations where you would take this over this. I don't see it very often. This is almost an auto sell. It's kind of like the large straight, because you already have like a recharge ability here. So it's just it's hard to get the value out of this card. It's just hard. I don't know. It's just bad. It's kind of bad. I sell this 95% of the time. I don't know. If someone else knows a good situation, other Scarlet Witch players, if you know a good situation for when you'll actually go for this ability instead of this ability, please tell me, because I have racked my brain and played a lot of Scarlet Witch, but I don't know where this is even like applicable. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's get that out of the way. All right, last thing. And that is her Double Trouble. This is your defense. So you automatically roll 5 on base on. So remember the on, so you only get this once. So if you roll 4 of these warp symbols, you don't get 2 crackles. All right, so just remember that. So on 2, you get a crackle. On 2 4s, you get a probability manipulation. On 2 5, you get a conjure. And on 2 6s, you deal 4 damage back. You typically are going to gain crackle, and then maybe you'll get something else. So it's actually not a bad defense at base. It's not necessarily needed to upgrade every game, but if you do upgrade it, here's what it is. So so it tells you on 2 4s you can gain. It's the same thing. Gain probability manipulation. On 2 5s, gain a conjure. On 2 6s, do damage. But on 3 of your warp symbols, you can gain 2 crackle. So that's awesome. And you may discard a probability manipulation to change one of these dice to any value. So it guarantees you, the probability manipulation guarantees you something. And like I said, you can't like lock in this. You can't lock in this defensive roll, gain the probability manipulation, and then use this to change your defensive roll. Does that make sense? Once you've locked in your defensive roll, you can't change it. But what it does is it changes the flexibility of probability manipulation on your defensive roll. So what it allows you to do is if you have like 4 crackle or like 4 of these symbols or something, so you can change one of those. Let's give you a theoretical defensive roll of where this actually would actually come into play. Let's say I rolled something like this or whatever. Okay. Oh, you can't even see that. Let me put these dice over here. All right, so let's say I roll 4 of these, right? So 4 of these, I can gain 2 crackle, but then the extra symbol is like not going to do anything for me. So I can change it to anything I want and match it with that 5th die in order to gain the secondary effect of whatever it is. So now it'd be kind of funny if you had, where is it? If you had a 4 and you changed it to a 4. Basically, you're exchanging out a probability manipulation to gain 1. I've done this before just to troll people. It's hilarious, but that's totally useless. It's only useful on if you have a 5 or a 6, and it'll guarantee you that you can get that from when you have that situation there. So that's sort of the most common use that you're going to have out of it. You can technically you could roll something like this too, and then if you wanted to change one of these dice, keep 1 crackle and then change one of these dice to whatever, like you could change the 4 or the 5 to a 6 if you really wanted to. You could already change 4 to a 5 with probability manipulation in general, or to a 3 with probability manipulation in general, but it adds some flexibility to the defensive roll. So anyway, that's pretty much all of Scarlet Witch's board token effects. Well, actually, let's go over Ultimate, since I guess that's what we came here for. That's why we play the game. So, Sealed Your Fate, gain 1 conjure and probability manipulation, inflict reality warp, and then deal 12 undefendable damage. You'll take it if you roll it, right? You'll take it if you roll it. It's not bad at all. So, We could go over her. We could go over Scarlet Witch's specific cards. But I think we've basically done what we need to. Basically, just know that a lot of her unique cards just change dice. So use that and use that. I like to use it defensively. You can use it offensively too if you really want to push it. She's a flexible character in her role objectives, even though she has a semi-hard dice orientation of the 3-1-1-1. I really like this character. She's just so cool, so cool. So get out there, have fun, and go win some games. Peace out.